Hello, welcome to another vlog for Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm not at home, so this vlog might not be, probably the whole thing is going to be not in my typical environment. I've started book 2 and I love it so much. I was supposed to, here's what happened. Because I finished book 1 before June began, it would be inappropriate for me to, just pick up another June book on my TBR and just continue reading through my June books before it's June. That would just be unfair to the people that I'm supposed to be buddy reading with. So what am I supposed to do? I can't read June books. It's not June yet. I have to read the sequel to Dungeon Crawler Carl. So here we are. From the beginning, this book has been quite a bit more chaotic than the first book. It seems, well, I mean, naturally, the first book has to do ground laying. It has to establish characters and what the world is and what Carl's conflicts are before it tears it all down and then builds up something new. And we have to introduce the dungeon and introduce the wider conflicts within the dungeon and the characters that we're going to. It's now we have so many things established that we're just sprinting. The third floor is chaos. It's so intense. And we begin with the scene where they're choosing their new races and classes. And of course, Donut is just like, I'm a cat. Cat is superior. I don't need to be anything else. Carl, you need to be a cat too. And he's like, no. I wasn't surprised when Carl chose the anarchist role because book 3 is called Anarchist Cookbook, I'm pretty sure. Not that I've already bought book 3. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm not saying that. Anyway, they did follow Odette's advice and chose something that would force Mordecai to be their manager. The poor lad. He's just trying to live his life. He's not trying to be more involved, to be displaced from what's comfortable to him. The more time we spend with him, the more we see that he has some vices and he's not doing so well in his new manager role. But, I'm happy to have him around and they're happy he's so useful. So, here we are. We also have a timeline. We only have 8 days here. I guess Borant is trying to speed things along. So we know that this is going to be, at least within the confines of the book, within the character perspective, this is we have to move. We have to move quickly. So the book, naturally, is moving very quickly. One scene that was really notable to me was when Mongo's doubled in size. He's growing rapidly. He's getting more attached to them. I love him. But one thing that was really notable was the scene when Donut saved him, and then Carl, was concerned for Donut and told her, we don't risk our lives for pets. Which, as soon as he said it, he realized, not the thing to say. And I wish he would have just addressed it. And I understand that probably wouldn't have been true to his character. But I wish he would have just addressed it and been like, I'm not talking about you. And I hope that Donut is able to reflect a little bit and recognize, he has risked his life for me multiple times up to this point. So there's probably some nuance to what he said just there. And now Carl is, calling her partner, trying to signal very clearly, hey, you're more than a pet to me, which she is, obviously. But obviously he cares about her and obviously he would do anything for her. I mean, my goodness, in the last book, he knew that he would probably die, but he set off the explosive anyway and covered them both with the alchemy table, knowing, I'm probably gonna die, but you should make it out, right? He loves her. But I'm concerned for the friction that this could cause later, especially because, again, it really is seeming like B is going to come back into the picture, and I'm worried about little fractures like this causing Donut to want to go with B and leave Carl behind, which would not only be, sad, but also in the realm of having sponsors and continuing forward for the sake of the game, not getting killed off. I don't know that he would be able to last long without Donut in this game, even though he's strong and he is, clever and cunning on his own, and he does have his own charm to him. I don't think he couldn't make any allies, but I do think that this could be detrimental to him if Donut leaves him for a long period. And I don't think that she would leave for a long period, but I do worry about I worry about him. I worry about them. We also had the inclusion of elite storylines, and so now we know about these dramas that are going on, these productions that are being put forth where these are real, sentient, living people, but they have falsified memories and ambitions, and they're living a false story for people's entertainment. Again, pretty dark, but also that just adds one more potentially very significant barrier to them. Oh, wait. Before I talk about the elites, I just want to circle back and say one more thing. There was a scene that Carl recalled when he was pretending to be asleep on the couch, or like he had just woken up but he didn't feel like getting up. And he overheard Bea and her mom talking, and Bea was calling Carl a dummy, and, you know, you got to pretend that you're dumber than your lad so that he won't leave you or something like that. And then he said, I'm glad Donut was asleep and she couldn't hear what Bea said next about her. And then didn't go into that. But I also worry about Donut. If Bea does show back up in the dungeons and Donut decides to go with Bea, I worry about the kind of heartbreak she would experience if she's in battle with Bea and Bea leaves her behind to save herself. Because that's not what Donut's used to. That's not the kind of partnership she's experienced up to this point. Anyway, elites. So this could cause so much more friction. This add so many complications, because already you could be killed off if we don't find you entertaining enough. So make sure you play by our game, our game. But now we also have the elite situation, which is just, it's a whole, this whole other potential severe complications and things that they are now being roped into participating in, even though just there's enough going on already. Anyway, he is currently in one called Vengeance of a Vampire. Now, when he goes into the circus and he smells, I don't remember what it was like hay and popcorn and peanuts and cotton candy or something like that, and he likens it to, this is the smell of happiness. And this is what I experienced only a couple of times in my life, and it was all during the period when my mom took me away. And if Dad hadn't found us again and brought us back, I could have had a completely different life, one that actually had more of this. So that said a lot in a little bit of time. I mean, it was already clear in book 1 that there were some dark memories attached to his parents, but now we know that his dad was probably abusive, that his mom at least at one point tried to get them out, but that they were dragged back in, and then his life was not good because of his dad's involvement. So that says a lot, and I imagine we're going to keep moving through that. But I also think that maybe one of the things that Carl keeps saying in his head, you can't break me, or you won't break me, I wonder if that mantra was birthed from his childhood, and specifically from his dad, his determination to not be broken by his father. Anyway, I finished in after chapter 10, so we know that the vine is a mob boss, and it uses its power to keep its family alive, which is interesting that Carl had that familial flashback at the same time as we learn about this mob boss that's trying to keep its family alive. I have a lot of thoughts about this, about like what kind of parallel the author could be trying to make with bringing these two things up at the same time and showing the desire to protect the family no matter what, and how fruitless that potentially is, and then Carl's specific family situation. But where I left off, I haven't completed everything that's being discussed here for this mob boss, so I want to finish that out and then maybe come back with more reflections. But he's going to poison himself and then drip blood. Supposedly, the plan is poison yourself, drip blood on the vine, and poison it, and then take an antidote, and here's hoping it all goes well. So that's where I am. We'll see. Anyway, Dungeon Crawler Carl, book 2, going great. Welcome to the vlog. Hello. So Carl has become a regular in one of these soap operas, in one of these dramas. Not what I expected. It's not a soap opera. Not what I expected. I expected him to be outraged over the whole thing, which, you know, he obviously is constantly outraged over the inhumanity that is taking place in this whole situation. But he's smart. He's strategizing. He's thinking through, okay, how can I use this situation to my advantage? And he makes a deal. If he makes it to the 6th floor, he'll sign an exclusive agreement to only complete elite themed quests on the 6th floor that are directly associated with Vengeance of the Daughter. This will be beneficial to them and their ratings, especially because they could potentially not make it very far without his help, cooperation. But Donut smartly, also notices the potential deficits to this plan, how this could also potentially put them at risk. But at the end of the day, this is an impossible situation, and he needs to do something, and this seems like the best plan for him, and he's able to enact this plan. He's able to pursue this and establish the contract with them, and still defeat this boss battle in a way that to him seems a lot more humane. The voices in his head after he ate the worm ice cream, and they were all in his mind and trying to influence him, and how the way that affected him, and then how he was immediately able to relate to, okay, this must be how it's affecting you, then I thought was such a good scene. I love that Carl as a character, even though he is a tank, even though he is the muscle of their group, he's not just brute forcing his way through everything. He's not just trying to, okay, this is a boss battle, I have to defeat it, so I defeat it. He's not Wreck-It Ralph. He thinks through the situation and tries to navigate it with as much compassion as he can. He's constantly outraged by the nature of these games, how twisted it is, how unfair it is, how dehumanizing it all is, but he's willing to do what he has to do to get through it, but not at the compromise of who he is. I won't let it break me. And it's being tied in more and more with his family and his past and with his own ideals and who he wants to be. And I think that that's part of I won't let it break me, is I won't let you make me a part of this game in the truest sense. Like, I'll play, but I won't be changed by you. The more we uncover about the dungeon and how it's functioning and all the different systems that they have in play to make it the most engaging game, or the most engaging thing to watch, shows that this really isn't a game of skill or agency, and in fact that the players are being manipulated, controlled, maneuvered, that they're being pushed in a direction, and they have a lot less agency than it first appeared when they first entered the dungeon. Carl continues to engage with the enemies of the dungeon, the antagonists that he faces off, with a sense of humanity to them, wanting to not just kill and destroy every obstacle in his way, but with a lot of empathy. He continues to see, are you being manipulated in this situation too? And have empathy for their unique situation as well, and not just look out for him and his team, but find a better way to get through the situations. Again, Carl's character, I just think as the story goes on, continues to have more and more depth about him. Yeah, so Carl finds Donut at 20% health, and after Donut makes a recovery, tells him, you could still be killed off because you're still a side character. You're not a main character, and they may not want you to be more popular than the main characters. And again, Donut continues to be someone who kind of understands, she has this love for reality TV and for sitcoms and for the kind of content that they're now a part of, and so she can see behind the scenes a little bit better than Carl can, and add that balance that he really needs in order to fully know what he's getting into and be able to assess how to survive. Oh yeah, Carl received heart print boxers, so he super can't get pants now. Okay, then we have the whole plot line of prostitutes falling from the sky, or being piled up in front of the gates because they're all being killed off. So this is a quest that he's accepted, and now they're on this mission to try to solve who's killing all these women. Oh, and also Mordecai, if they reach the 4th floor, which they will, then the system's protection is going to kick in, and for him specifically, it will apply that if he dies in game, then he will simply be freed from his obligations for the season. And he says, don't worry about it. I'm not going to take advantage of this benefit to me, but I'm just making note of it because I imagine we might get a fake out death in the future. It just seems like the option is ripe, right, for him to, maybe in 2 or 3 books, enough time for me to have forgotten this little detail, he might die, and then I think he's actually dead. But he's fine. We'll see. So we go to the Desperado Club. We experience those flying disembodied women with their entrails, trailing out, their organs spilling out all over the place. That was fun. But the best one was the elf, and my dad's reading this book at the same time as me. We're actually on the same chapter right now as I film this. And there was this elf that came in and just showed up and was like, I've been training my whole life to defeat you. And then Carl kicks him in the crotch and Donut blasts him away. And then he's gone. He's just gone. It's so funny. It's my dad's favorite scene of the book so far. Right, so that's basically where I am as far as I can remember, as far as the notes that I just wrote down before I came to film this. One thing of note is that the system AI continues to look more and more suspect to me. The NPCs, which we saw this in book 1 too, the NPCs are these exaggerated stereotypes of people, of humanity, and seems to be depicting humanity to the wider public that are watching the games in a way that isn't authentic, but also it seems to know Carl really well, like disturbingly well. We have what were the things? We have, the books from his childhood that he was gifted. We have, there was a scene where Carl was in peril. I don't remember which one, there are many, where he was in peril and the AI system started quoting Of Mice and Men, a scene of death, a very dark scene in Of Mice and Men as Carl was in peril and might die, which is like a really disturbing thing to do. There's really no reason to have gone to that other than to just mess with him. He was gifted a picture of B, specifically the one that made him break up with B, the one of her sitting on her ex-boyfriend's lap, taking a selfie, posting it, basically mocking Carl that she's cheating on him, and that's how he broke up with her. My battery's about to die. Let's see if we can finish out this clip. I'm just noticing more and more that the AI is really specifically targeting him, that the AI knows too much about him, like it shouldn't know this much, and it's using it to knock him off his feet a little bit, to make him off balance. It could be something really, really sinister, or it could just be building on how disturbing it is that this whole system, that this whole thing that they're a part of is not caring about the individuals that are a part of the entertainment, that people would be created just to be harvested and put into these dungeons for your entertainment, that people would be real life people, but that their memories and their own ideas would be removed from them, and instead they'd be implanted with these storylines for others' entertainment. This idea that there are those that are to be entertained, and then there are those whose agency and humanity don't matter as much because they're the entertainment. So it could be as simple as that just the AI knows Carl well, because it does, and it's messing with him because that's more entertaining to the audience. Or it could be something a little bit broader and more sinister. I haven't really sorted out what I think about that yet. I'm just taking note that the AI is very personalized, probably to each person, but it's also not looking like it's personalized to help. Oh, right. I did mark this. Mordecai actually says at one point, those running the game know who Carl is and they understand how best to bait him. Once Carl's curiosity and sense of justice are engaged, they know he will not be able to resist becoming involved. I think this was when the side quest was being presented to him and Mordecai said ignore it, and then Carl, couldn't, because it's just not who he is. His point was, they know you better than you think they should, and they will use it to manipulate you. So I guess that's more of what the AI is bent towards. It's being programmed or being used. I don't even know, it might be a real person, who's to say. It's being used for that purpose because they know how to manipulate him, and it's more of that manipulation, more of that forcing the people into a certain direction. This isn't free will survival sort of situation where you just engage with things and hopefully survive. It's we're pulling the strings and we'll do what we want. You're being manipulated left, right, and center, even with the AI and the awards and everything involved. You're our puppet. Dance. Again, it continues to be lighthearted and fun, and I'm laughing constantly, but it's pretty dark too. So that's the update. Hello, final vlog clip. I finished Dungeon Crawler Carl 2, and I love it so much. My first vlog went live in between the last clip and this one, and quite a few comments saying, don't worry, it only gets better from here, but also quite a few comments saying that books 2 and 3 are the slog books. They're the slower ones that you kind of have to push through a little bit, while this book was more chaotic than the first one, and, you know, more side questy on a technical sense, but side quests that I think worked for the overall point of what we're doing and exploring what's been happening up to this point and will have repercussions further on. I don't know. I loved this book as much as the first one. I have thoughts about Donut that I'm not going to fully explore here because they feel like harebrained theories, and I want to collect a little bit more evidence before I start sounding like a fool. But there have been things about Donut that I'm trying to key in on. One in particular, the elf that I talked about in the last clip, when they examined his corpse, he had a uniform shirt with an insignia on it, and Donut critiques the sewing and embroidery, but doesn't understand why or how she knows about it. Again, I'm not theorizing, I'm making a note for future Murphy to build on, because I have some thoughts, but I want to collect more evidence before I look a fool. Okay, I'm not going to go through plot beat after plot beat as we're continuing on this quest, as we're continuing to try to solve the mystery of whodunit. I just want to mention that probably my favorite scene in the book was when they're first talking to Quill, and Carl pulls out the corpse of one of the dead prostitutes. He pulls her out of his inventory and just slams her down on the desk. Beanie Babies go flying. She's disturbed and distraught, and it was such a chaotic scene that went on for so long. Not too long, just so long, and it cracked me up. And then the guards came in, and because Carl had used his gate pass to prove that he had the right to move the corpse in the beginning, then they didn't do anything about it, and it was so funny. Carl and his sense of justice and his sense of his desire to buck up against being used as a pawn in this game has gotten him into trouble, we could say, when he's on the danger zone with Ripper Wonton show, and he basically calls for an uprising. If you're unhappy with your government, then kick them out and set up your own, one that presents the people's best interest. Giant missile from the sky shoots down on what was their trailer, and by a bit of luck, or not luck depending on who you might ask, they survived it, and others died. Now, it seems chaotic in that, this one thing, all of a sudden there's this massive intergalactic assassination attempt, and then when it looks like, oh no, what are we gonna do? We're doomed. Then it's like, no, someone else stepped in and actually took care of that, but then this other person wasn't in it, and it seems really chaotic, but I mean, it was funny. but I think that obviously there's going to be wider repercussions for this, right? Carl has been painted as being the one to blame for the deaths of those, that were killed in this attack. I think it's very clear that the repercussions of this particular action are going to continue on through into the next books, that this has actually set up a wider conflict that is going to affect them for a long time. We're also introduced to Katya, because Hecla asked them to help her. She's the doppelganger who has to change her appearance, but she's not very good at it, and Mordecai is helping her. I gotta be honest, I didn't like her upon her first introduction, because it felt too much like the author was trying to force sympathy points. Like, I'm supposed to feel bad for her and therefore attached to her and want her to join our team and trust her and love her, and because it felt like compassion was required of me, I instantly just didn't want to offer it, and I was just like, no, I don't like you. Not because of anything she did wrong, but just because I felt like emotionally I was being manipulated by the narrative, and I guess I'm Carl. So when I see the AI trying to force the plot to move in a certain direction or force me to react emotionally to something, I'm like, no, I won't do it. So dumb. There's no good reason for me to act this way, but I'm just being honest with you. So we kill Quill, this quest ends, a new emergency quest or sudden quest begins, where it's like, okay, we're all gonna die if we don't hurry up and get out of here. Carl, through his quick thinking, ends that quest too. Then he has to be naked because everybody has to strip off their magical wear, which for Carl, unfortunately, is the boxers. So they set off the last bit of dynamite to see if they could get some experience points, and they go down the staircase. I'm summarizing really a lot right now. There are a lot of things that I love about this section. I especially love Carl asking Donut, what do you want to do? Do you want to try to save everyone, or do you want to try to get out alive? And up to this point, I perceive Carl as someone who refuses to compromise his morality, what he believes is right, for the sake of the game. He refuses to strip away who he is so as to win. I mentioned in the first vlog that it had some Hunger Games vibes and immediately apologized for it. And many people said, no, it does. You're fine. And that's one thing that I think we could draw another parallel to, because the Hunger Games forces the contestants to strip away what they think they would be willing to do, or rather what they think they would hold on to of their own humanity and dignity, and lays it all bare for the sake of survival. How far will you go? What kind of animal will you turn yourself into if we make it into a game and we make it impossible for you to maintain that humanity and that dignity? And that's something that's similarly happening more and more in this book, as we see how much these games are orchestrated, how heavy the hand of the AI and those that are controlling everything really is, that there is no that the games are being controlled by the game makers, so much so that you are being forced and manipulated to do what we find most entertaining, and it doesn't really matter what your moral compass would be. And Carl clings to his moral code. He continually finds ways to do things that he has to do, but to do them in his own way and to still maintain some control, even though he should have forfeited all control by this point. So the scene where he asked Donut what she wanted to do during a moral quandary, I don't know, that spoke a lot to me. I think that the two have become more and more of a united pair, really a true team, real partners, as Carl keeps saying. And scenes like that display just how deep that really has gone up to this point. Obviously the epilogue, continues to be lighthearted about that sex tape we now know was not real, and as they're watching Carl, run through the dungeon without his boxers. But again, what really struck me was his breakdown in the bathroom floor. And Donut is there to comfort him. The reality of what they're really facing hits him, and he just freezes and can't move forward. And up to this point, he's always moving forward. But here he had this moment of just kind of breaking. Even though he keeps saying they won't break me, here he allowed himself to break a little bit, and Donut was right there with him. Carl has been fighting so hard to maintain who he is, what he believes in, and no matter what he does, the game is built to break him. It's built to break down all of those things in the most entertaining, sick, sadistic way possible. How can we use everything that he loves, everything that he cares about, everything that hurts him, use it as a pinpoint attack on you specifically to break you for our games, for our enjoyment? And I think the revelation of how much the games are being controlled, as well as the revelation of how little control he has, and that he will always be punished for his morality. He will always be punished for his humanity. Any displays of compassion that he offers will always come back to bite him. And then shortly after that, they're supposed to get these mega prize boxes, and that's been vetoed too. So just around every corner, everything is being controlled, and he is punished for any acts of goodness that he attempts to have. And he just laughs in the face of it, and he's just like, fine, I'm done. I'm not helping other people. I'm grinding, and I'm helping my team. I'm just going to get stronger, and I'm going to move forward. That's it. I'm out. So in a sense, the tone at the end of this book, and of course then you also have the information that they are in the top 10, that Hecla, is that her name, is after them, wanting to kill Carl so that she can have the benefit of Mordecai being Donut's manager. They have bounties on their head, so things are looking really bad. And Carl is just like, stellar, I'm out, right? So the tone at the end of this book is, oh no, has Carl been broken, right? His catchphrase has been, I won't let them break me. And then here he is, we see him broken, on the floor being comforted by Donut and then declaring, I'm done with this. I'm done with helping everyone in my path. So the question is, what's that going to look like in book 3? Does he start off being like really hardened and we can see the evidence that he's been broken somewhat, and then eventually he goes back to, he finds healing and goes back to the Carl that we know and love. Oh, the big bird just flew overhead. Or does he pick himself up? The question is, how quickly does he pick himself up? Because I'm not worried about Carl being broken at this point in the series. Oh, also, Donut lost her tiara, which means that they're going to have potentially more foes because someone's going to pick it up, and then that's going to be an enemy for them too. I forgot to list that on all the reasons why book 2 ends in a pretty dire situation for them. Oh, right, and Katya is kind of being insinuated as being a potential betrayer. Again, I don't really believe it because it seems like the narrative is trying to make me suspect her too hard, so I'm just like, no. I think the fact that the book is so built on the AI, the system, the game is continually learning, and it's learning so that it can be our demise, so that it can use us and manipulate us. And so I'm like, I won't be manipulated by whatever the book is trying to tell me. It's probably going to be my downfall, honestly. Right, also, okay, so, sorry, I'm looking over my notes now to make sure I didn't forget anything. So, as I mentioned, the game is blaming Carl for the explosion and all the terrible things, which means that a lot of people are going to set themselves against him, so he has a target on his back, not only with the bounty, but also he's not going to be able to he may not be able to build alliances very easily because people are mad at him and don't trust him. Daniel was a really interesting character in the book too. I didn't really talk about him at any point, but him being someone who is willing to give up his humanity for the sake of progression, whereas Carl has refused to do so up to this point, and now Daniel regrets it. He was a really good contrast to Carl, I think, in this book, especially as Carl is in this kind of darker place emotionally here at the end, or at least more fractured place here at the end, to have the contrast of Daniel and everything that he went through in this book, and then to see Carl in the place that he's in at the end of the book, I thought was a really good choice. Oh yeah, and of course we have Carl's Doomsday scenario now in his possession, so that'll come back up, I'm sure. Anyway, I feel like I've been talking for so long, so we'll call that good on this book. So much happened, like even as I'm trying to just quickly hit beats in order to talk about the deeper, things that I want to be talking about. It's like, it takes so long because, as I said, it felt more chaotic, this book did. And I don't say that as a negative, just as an aspect. It just did. So there's so much here, and I mean, you've read the book. You don't need me to summarize in any more detail than I've done, but my goodness. I'm mad at my June TBR for existing. I would love to just go right into book 3. But I really should pause and get to the books that I committed to doing and then pop back over to book 3. So book 3 is happening soon. But I do need to actually get to the buddy reads that I committed to, rudely. So anyway, another Carl vlog is coming to you soon. Bye.